back to Recovery Demystified. My name's Early. I'm so happy to have y'all here today. Today I have another interview episode for y'all. It is my friend Bill. Bill actually hired me at the restaurant that I currently work at back in the day in 2021 when we still had to wear masks to wait tables. And the kitchen staff was a mask, even the dishwasher. Poor guy. Yeah, nothing will really make you feel like a peasant than when you have to protect the customers from your germs, but they don't have to protect you from their germs. It was a very odd dynamic. And it definitely made my autistic self have a higher level of stress and difficulty with communication when I was wearing a mask and the customer wasn't. Yeah, weird times. And then I met all of my coworkers, a lot of who are still there today, who I love so deeply. It's like such a special little family at this place. I met most of them, I mean, all of them. We're all wearing masks, so no one knew what each other looked like, which is a really funny experience. And then at some point, like the restrictions died down or whatever, and we took our masks off at work and none of us had seen each other's faces before. And we're just like giggling, like how silly it is to see each other's faces for the first time when we'd worked together and told secrets and supported each other for so long. It's just interesting to not know what the bottom half of someone's face looks like. I just remember that being a really special moment and lots of just like giggling and smiling and stuff. Yeah. So I know Bill from that, and we instantly click because we're like, oh my God, you're sober. I'm sober. And we've been sober around the same amount of time. So it's just always like a special little bond because, if someone's gotten sober, that they've sort of been through it, like something bad had to have happened, and there's just like an implicit understanding between people who've quit drinking because it had to get bad for a minute, and it's a type of suffering that you can really only empathize with if you've been through it. So we've always got along because of that, and we've kept in contact bits and pieces here and there since he's moved to Portland. I think just because of that special sober people bond, and that sober in the restaurant industry bond is especially strong because it's a very, very drinky, druggy place typically to work in a restaurant. So it's special to be sober with someone. Just a little technical note for this episode. Bill was name dropping actual restaurants that he worked at, and then saying perhaps critical things about those restaurants. And so I tested out beeping, bleeping it out, and it was just too jarring and it sounded like shit. So I just cut them out. So if there's little moments where you're like, oh, that sounded a little jumpy, it's because I just cut out the name of a restaurant that we didn't really need to say. Thanks for understanding, Bill. And yeah, also this is my second remote interview, and in the editing process, the same thing kind of happened as it did with Carrie's interview, where it's a little bit sounds like we're talking over each other, and I think it's because Libsyn records two separate tracks on either end and then overlays them on top of each other later on instead of just recording one track with both voices, how they actually sound. So something in that process, it wasn't me this time, I don't think, but something in that process, it kind of just sounds like we're talking over each other here and there towards the end. I don't think it's super disruptive, but if it sounds like that, I think that's why I'm still working out the kinks with the remote interviewing. So thank you for your patience with that. But yeah, this episode's super relatable. For anyone who's ever worked in a restaurant and taken it too far and then gone out to Dixon and fucking sniffed a bit of Coke or whatever. Yeah, it just it's very, very relatable in the way that things can just slowly and quickly spiral out of control just without us noticing. And then all of a sudden we look up and we're like, fuck. Yeah, so I'm super glad that Bill came on to tell his story. And without further ado, here is our interview. Hi, Bill. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a sunny day here in Portland.
Portland, Oregon, but you're a former Fayettevillean.
I sure am. Born and raised.
Heck yeah. Cool. Well, will you start by introducing yourself to the audience? Let them know your pronouns and just a little bit about yourself.
My name is Bill. My pronouns are he, him. As I said, I grew up in Fayetteville, graduated Fayetteville High School, spent a little time at the U of A, didn't finish, did a lot of restaurant work. Then I moved to Oregon to continue doing restaurant work. And that's where I'm at.
Heck yeah. Yes, Bill was the one that hired me at the current restaurant that I work at. So that's how we met back in the day when we still had to wear masks and wait tables. That was an odd time.
Did.
A weird time for restaurants.
Good crew, though. Good crew.
Yes. A lot of them are still there, actually. A lot of them are on this podcast. Dun, dun, dun.
I'm noticing a theme.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get into what we came here to do. We're here to talk about your story with addiction and recovery. So let us know what it was like for you to be a kid, and then maybe some of your first exposures to alcohol or drugs, then when things got bad, and how you decided to get into recovery. So start wherever you'd like.
Okay. So when I was a kid, my parents didn't drink too much when I was a kid. My mom's pretty religious. And the first major memory of alcohol I have is my crazy Uncle Jim coming over, unannounced, late at night, clearly hammered. He had just left a showing of Saving Private Ryan, and he was arguing with my mother about how she should let my, at the time, 12-year-old brother see Saving Private Ryan because it'll teach him how to be a man, is what he said. At the time, I don't think I realized how drunk he was, but now that I've talked to my mom about that story, it's okay, yeah, that apparently was a consistent thing, and it certainly was that night.
How old were you when you saw that?
I'm pretty sure I was 8.
Do you remember how it felt to see your uncle like that, or was that his sort of normal state?
It was kind of his normal state, and if he was an angry guy, I didn't see it too much. I'm sure he was at times, but so I probably didn't recognize it then that something had altered his mind state, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I was 9 or 10, my parents split up, and I mentioned my mom being religious, but my dad never really was. And very quickly I realized how much my dad enjoyed alcohol, whenever they were not together. And so that was probably when I learned more of its destructive power, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. So you never really saw him drinking until after they got a divorce?
Yeah. And so he had moved to Dallas before they got divorced because his job took him there. And he started coming. He didn't come back to Arkansas quite as much. And that's where things kind of split off, I think. And then when I'd go visit him down there, it's that was the first time I'd really see a beer full of fridge, or a fridge full of beer. Yeah. And I'd be down there during the summers, but obviously he was still working, but the person who was watching me would take me and meet them for lunch, and him and his coworkers were all lunch drinkers, which was also kind of weird for me, a very early time start drinking in my mind. But
were you something's different about my dad, or how did you process that at that age?
Well, I was more preoccupied with the divorce. I did think something was different about my dad, and mainly my feelings towards my dad were different.
How were they different?
I just had a lot of resentment towards the breakup in general. I was and still am a mama's boy for sure. So it was kind of just, I think I viewed anything he was doing in a negative light probably for a while. So I definitely viewed it in a negative light at that time. Yeah,
that makes sense. Was there feelings of abandonment and stuff like that too?
Definitely. Yeah. Because I knew he'd had this friend, but it took me a few years to realize she was more than a friend, and it just didn't make sense to me as a, kids just don't understand that.
Yeah, that's super hard to go through as a kid, especially having your dad move an entire state away. That I can imagine that being pretty traumatizing at that age.
Yeah, we had just moved from Johnson. I said I grew up in Fayetteville, but little baby Fayetteville, Johnson, Arkansas. And we had just moved from Johnson, Arkansas to over by the hospital in Fayetteville. And so I was already kind of I didn't have to change schools or anything, but it was still like a change to process. It was like a half-built neighborhood. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of just felt like a desolate place to live as a child. But turns out construction sites are fun to play on. Who knew?
Did you have siblings?
I did, yeah. So from my dad in a former marriage, I have my oldest brother. I didn't grow up with him, but I saw him a decent amount. And then in my house, I grew up with a brother and sister that were from my mom in a previous marriage. And
were you able to lean on them during the times of the divorce? Or not really?
No, because, I've said to people before, like, everyone feels really bad for children of divorce, which I'm sure we appreciate and understand, but who I really feel bad for is the people that they're children of divorce, and then their parent, whoever it may be, finds a new marriage, and then that divorces too. Because so I still have connections with my dad and my mother. But this person that raised them, to some extent, my dad being that, it's just gone from their lives, kind of.
Yeah, it's like double traumatizing.
Yeah. And, we're talking about, young teens or young children at this point, and they kind of take it out on whoever's left behind, which in this case was me,
Yeah. So you're the youngest one.
Yeah, I'm the youngest. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry all that stuff happened to you. My parents got divorced around that same age too. And it's really hard to understand when you're a kid, and can definitely be very traumatizing. So I'm sorry that you went through that.
I appreciate it.
What happened after that as you grew up?
Well, I kind of came to terms with my dad, and so I'd started visiting him more often. And I think that was kind of when I first started either sneaking beers, or his girlfriend had this frozen margarita machine that I really liked.
A machine?
Yeah, it was like a baby one, but yeah, because she had a pool, so she would I don't know, have these little parties or whatever, and there wasn't two watchful eyes, so that's probably, as far as I remember, that was my first experience with alcohol, was stealing from my dad. That was probably sixth or seventh grade.
Do you remember the thought process you went through before you stole the alcohol? Did you understand what it was and what it was going to do type thing?
Yeah, I think I did understand by then. It's kind of a vague memory. I know that the margarita, it just looked like a red slushie, so I was just like, okay, I'm in, or a yellow slushie or whatever. And the beer, you just kind of take one and try it, and it's I did not like beer when I was 12 years old, thankfully.
Do you remember how it made you feel? Did you drink enough to get a head change?
Yeah, I remember having a pretty gnarly headache after about a couple hours, because I think I only drank a little bit, and it was mainly the tequila, I think, in the margarita that was mind altering for me. And I don't really know how to describe it. It just kind of felt I guess it just felt like being drunk, but I didn't know what drunk was at the time. So it was kind of scary, kind of exciting. And then my head just hurt really bad.
Totally. Did you get any of the euphoria, or was it just the tipsy spinning kind of feeling?
If I did, I can't remember that well. Yeah, the nature of my struggle with alcohol has been really spotty memories through my life at sometimes now, as I try to look back on things,
So you had a little bit of experimentation, stealing the beer and frozen margaritas when you're with your dad. How did things go on from there?
So when I was in ninth grade, so we had it was a 3-bedroom house, and my mom was on the other side of the house from me and my brother's room, and she's a lifetime smoker, and she breathes out her nose, so her sense of smell is basically gone. And so my room became an easy place to either like bring people in quietly through the front door or through the window. And so that was kind of where, if we had weed, we'd smoke it in there. If we had alcohol, we'd drink it in there. And it was kind of like, I wouldn't say every weekend, but it was at least one weekend a month throughout ninth grade is probably where my first real experience of like a lot of like binge drinking, you know. And it was, I mean, you could definitely feel the euphoria there. You know, it's some of those people I'm actually still really good friends with. And so I always struggle with like having these memories that I enjoy, you know, like there are bonds formed in those moments, but like it also was the start of something that I would go on later to regret, you know?
Totally. Did it feel like at the time that normal teenage experimentation and exploration, or did it feel like a suppression of something else?
At the time, I think it just felt like experimentation. The following year in 10th grade, I kind of became more aware that I had an issue of some sort. I didn't really know if my biggest issue, not knowing much at the time, was the amount of marijuana I was smoking or the amount of alcohol I was drinking. And so in 10th grade, I asked my mom if I could go stay with my grandmother for a few months. And she lives in Springdale, so I could still just go to Fayetteville schools. And I didn't tell her about the alcohol, but I did tell her about the marijuana at that point. And, you know, she was very open to it. She was, you know, she didn't take it as like, she didn't get defensive about it, which I think she could have. And
for sure, a lot of parents might just be like, you're using drugs. What's wrong with you? You're grounded, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And were you expressing to her just that you were smoking weed or that you were concerned about it?
That I was concerned about it because my entire life at that point, I'd been a very good student, like grades wise and stuff like that. And I could just tell I wasn't focusing and I wasn't, you know, prioritizing the things I felt like I should be prioritizing.
It's kind of amazing to have that awareness at that age and that quickly that you're suffering some negative repercussions and wanting to address it. So just want to take note of that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
As we get to in the story, I didn't stick to it very well.
Right.
But I did get through, like there was, from that point in high school, at least, there was like some casual drinking and then occasionally, like a blackout drunk experience. And because it was occasional and not like as often as it was in ninth grade, I didn't really think of it as a big problem, you know, because I didn't understand. I definitely didn't understand what blacking out like does to the brain and like what can go wrong in that experience, you know? Because I guess in some ways I feel lucky that I drank to blackout as a high schooler with a car and nothing horrible came of it. Totally. You know what I mean? That's, you know, there's still some internalized guilt about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you moved to your grandma's house. What did you think was going to change by moving houses?
Well, I knew I wouldn't smoke in my grandma's house. Just because I don't know. I don't know where that line came from. Is like, I didn't mind disrespecting my mother's house, but my grandma's house was like a whole different thing, you know? And
then I'm guessing you weren't like sneaking people in on the weekends up there either?
No. She was like far enough away and not enough people had cars that even if I had really wanted to, I don't think I could have, but.
So when you were drinking, were you still like sneaking? Were you like going to hang out with your friends to drink, or were you drinking by yourself?
I was going to hang out with my friends. Like up on Mount Sequoia, we'd kind of just hide and drink whatever. But for the most part, I didn't except for the blackout nights, I didn't ever like think of it as a problem until when I was 18. I was going to the U of A, and because I was from Fayetteville, I just didn't think I needed to live on campus. And in some ways, this feels like a split in the road. And I could have either gotten my own apartment or I could have lived on campus. And I just think that in some ways, I think my life turns out kind of differently if I live on campus when I was 18, you know, but
because there's more oversight or something.
Yeah, because there's more oversight for sure. And at my core, I'm a rules follower, probably. So, you know,
nerd.
Nerd. Yeah, exactly. But so I had my own apartment. It was right off Leverett behind that old Eureka Pizza. And it was close enough to campus that anybody on campus could come to my house. It was right in the center of town. It was just a pretty easy place to have parties at, or even if, you know, you say parties, sometimes it's just 5 people drinking to excess. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, when I think back, like when did I used to think back to that point of like when my problem really started, just through therapy and getting older. I now realize it started much younger than that, but that was definitely where I honed my practice of abusing alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for it to escalate wildly if you're not living with your mom, not living with your grandma, not living somewhere with student housing where there's people like leering over your shoulder. You're just like, I'm 18, I'm on my own, there's all the filters are removed. So it makes sense that it would accelerate during that time to me.
Yeah. And so naturally I stopped going to class, mm-hmm. as you do. And then kind of, I guess we'll jump to, basically I just drank like that until I was like 20, and I got different roommates and I had moved apartments, and I think I was just more aware of it. Like I never like stayed consistently always drinking like that. I would kind of like stop for a little bit, you know, go into a time of not using it as much and then ramp back up. And because sometimes I could have the control to not drink daily, but it was just that when I drank, I just went pretty hard at it.
Totally. So you dropped out of college that first year?
No, I didn't drop out. I just failed half my courses, which totally would have been better if I just dropped out.
But so if you're like trying to control your drinking here and there, were you questioning it? Like, were you like, wow, I need to like rein it in? Like, what was the thought process when you would not drink every day and then go back out and sort of binge drink? Like, were you questioning your use? Were there negative repercussions? Like, what was going on?
Okay. I accidentally skipped over an important point. When I was 18, my oldest brother, he's an opioid addict, and he had tried to not be living anymore. And it kind of woke me up to just how things can go, you know, because like I know that my brother was only using marijuana when he was in high school. And then by the time he's, you know, well, I guess he would have been like 27 or 28. He's like pretty deep in the well. So that's probably where like the questioning came from as I was going, but I clearly wasn't questioning it enough. But, you know, or I'd have like a really heavy night of drinking and I just feel like shit. And I would just be like, okay, now I'm going to pause for a month. I would make these arbitrary numbers. I'd be like, I'm going to wait 2 weeks, but then 2 weeks later, it's like, I'm a fifth of tequila in, you know? So
damn. I'm really sorry that you went through that with your brother. That definitely is like really, really scary stuff to see. And like, it sounds like it sparked a little bit of a desire for healing in you, which is really important. But it's also interesting to take note of like, just because something is like traumatizing or scary, like most of the time we can't be scared into making ourselves feel better. Like it can be like a wake up call, but it's okay that also that didn't force you to like magically be healed overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it takes a few wake up calls, right? Or sometimes it takes 100 wake up calls. Sometimes they're temporary. If you're a little lucky and you work hard at it, they can be permanent. But
For sure.
anyone who ever asked me about it, I always just tell them to like stay diligent, to like if you're trying to stop drinking and you stop drinking and let's say I've made it a year, then I still kind of try to like reassess how I feel about alcohol, like fairly consistently to, I don't know, just to like not get myself caught thinking that I could handle a beer here and there.
Oh yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I'm curious when you would take those little breaks, like the 2-week break or the month break or whatever amount of time breaks, when you got to the end of it, I feel like a lot of people go through this where they're like, well, I guess I don't have a problem. I've quit for 2 weeks. I quit for a month. I can go back and drink as much as I want because I just proved that I don't have a problem. Was that part of your story? Like, how did you feel when you were done with the breaks?
Like pre like 24 or 23, I get my years mixed up. That's definitely how I felt. Like I felt I'd get to the end of it and then I'd be like, okay, I guess I'm fine. And, and, drink. Yeah. I was just more of a binge drinker when I did it. And so it's just like the mental gymnastics I had done, to quote unquote earn this night of blue drinking I was about to partake in, was, I don't know, it was looking back, it's like, man, you were silly for thinking that you could do that. But
yeah, it's like reflecting on the logic. It's like, this isn't logic. You mean I felt well for 2 weeks, so I've earned the right to like heavily poison myself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the addicted voice hard at work.
And then 2014, so I was 23. I got a DUI, and I was blacked out, and I vaguely remember like kind of coming to and realizing I need to get off the road, and I thought I had pulled off to the side of the road, and it turned out I had just parked like kind of on the road but stopped driving. And then so anyways, I got arrested that night, and I don't know if you ever experienced this, but you have to, they sentence you to like some kind of counseling, and you can do that like group counseling, or you can do like an individual therapist. And I went to group counseling because it was the more affordable option. And I had this counselor. His name was Miguel. And at the time, he really frustrated me because I think my initial impression was that he was lumping all of us from different backgrounds, different substances, whatever, into the same box, right? Which obviously it's a group setting. He kind of has to, now I know he just kind of has to like, right, generalize a little bit. But one thing we do in that is it was once a week we'd show up, and then they'd be like, did you have any alcohol this week? Which not because you get in trouble for it, just to like assess your relationship with alcohol. Right. And, most weeks I still had a drink, like, or something, I had a blow and go, so I wasn't drinking and driving. But most weeks I still partook in some way. And I was always pretty honest. Like, I think one day I told him I had like 6 shots or something like at a bar. And he looked me in the eyes, and not sternly, but kind of like an important conversation with your parents or something. He said, do you think you could not drink alcohol? And I said, yes, I think I could. And he didn't really, I don't think he could say, well, prove it. Like, that's not really what they're supposed to do in that class. But I could just see in his eyes, he didn't believe me. And that was like the longest break I took from alcohol. And it ended up being like 6 months because I'm petty and vindictive, and I just wanted to prove this guy wrong.
I have heard this before with several people. Quitting out of spite is a thing.
Yeah. And yeah, when it was definitely out of spite when it started. And then by the end of those 6 months, I like looked back pretty fondly on Miguel because of it. Even though I was really frustrated with Miguel for most of my time in that 8 or 12 week course.
Were you in contact with him at month 6, or did you just leave the 8 to 12 week course and be like, yeah, that's done?
I just left the 8 to 12 week course. Yeah. I was in contact. Actually, I think he ended up, I think his wife had a baby or something. And so he actually didn't do like the last couple of weeks, which at the time I was thankful for. But
like, why is this guy riding me so hard?
Yeah.
I'm curious after.
I think I was the youngest one in that. I think I was the youngest one in that class. And so I don't know if that's also why I felt like he was signaling me out, but
yeah, could be any number of things. Or maybe he was singling everyone out and you just didn't see it. But I'm curious, when you got the DUI, were you like, oh shit, I have a problem? Or were you like, oh, I just need to not drink and drive, or I just need to be sneakier? Like, how did your mind react to getting a DUI?
My mind was terrified, and I put a lot of shame on myself in any capacity. And so I was doing that a lot. I didn't want to drink and drive anymore. So I was actually in a weird way, I was like thankful for the blow and go, you know? But so no, I wasn't like, how can I be sneakier about this? I did recognize I had a problem. Cause you know, my mom's the one who bailed me out, and I've never really like collapsed into her arms the way I did when I walked out of that jail. And, you know, so I think I knew I had a problem, and kind of at the time she knew I had a problem, looking back on it. But
damn. So it was kind of a wake up call, and you were like trying not to drink, but still did sometimes.
Still did sometimes. Yeah. So from the time I was like 16 till the time I was like 25, I played Ultimate Frisbee in Fayetteville. And it's very much like a social sport, kind of a party sport, very much a drinking culture. Some of the older Ultimate players in town had owned Smoke and Barrel when it was still open. So there's just a lot of the places where the people I knew were hanging out, there was going to be alcohol served. And I did not have the fortitude at the time to, you know, not really partake all the time, you know?
Yeah.
It really just depended if, like I said, if it was in that like 6 month stretch, or like, I was like, this is 30 days, I could usually commit to those. But outside of that, it was kind of free for all.
Hard to say no when you're like, well, this is a social connection. This is where I get that. And I don't want these people to think anything different of me. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess getting back to that 6 month break inspired by Miguel, what happened at the end of the 6 months?
At the end of the 6 months,
that was just your goal. You're like, I'm gonna quit for 6 months. I'm gonna show him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had entered into, at the time, up until that moment, was like probably my most serious relationship, and I'd gotten pretty healthy as far as like how I was eating, like how I was working out, just like how I was living. And it was also one of the better like mental health times I really remember, but not at the time. I didn't really think of my mental health. I didn't really have like the language to do that yet. But when I look back on it, it's like, yeah, you were feeling pretty good. But because I was feeling pretty good, I was more lax with like my alcohol usage than I should have been. You know, it was kind of like, oh, I'm covering all these bases, so it's okay if this base gets left uncovered sometimes. And so I was drinking like that. And then my basically at the same time that relationship ended, and my grandfather passed away, who was one of my favorite relatives for sure. And
Damn, that's a lot to happen at once.
yeah. And I think another time it was like another time where, like, almost out of spite, I just started drinking a lot, because it's that thing, like, you want that very toxic, mostly male thing where you want your ex-partner to feel bad for the state they've left you in, even though you have left yourself in that own state. You know what I mean?
I think they say drinking poison to try to hurt the other person or something of that nature.
Yeah. It wasn't that coherent when I was doing it, but now, like, as I've talked about it with, like, mental health professionals and stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, that's definitely feels like what I was doing. So then I think this would be about when I was working at the town center, but then when I left the town center, I started working on college. And, the restaurant industry is an easy place to, if you didn't smoke before, or if you didn't have a drinking problem before, you can get them very cheaply in the restaurant industry.
Yeah. A lot of jobs are just like, give you a shift beer when you're done,
Yeah. And, maybe, you can bleep out the restaurant name if we need to, but the problem with, and I always said this, is that they paid like shit, but they didn't keep an alcohol inventory. So, like, they didn't really track how much alcohol was coming in and out, and we all took advantage of that. It was that was also kind of a free for all.
So you got your paycheck now, like, by drinking.
Exactly. So that, and then, their big thing is Sunday brunch. And but Sunday brunch, it's like, I would say most of us started drinking towards the end of brunch while we're closing. And then we'd wander down to Art's Place or something. But eventually we're going to wind up on Dixon, and it's going to be like a 12-hour drinking day, probably.
What age were you in?
Then I would have been like 25, turning 26. I think it was because it was 2016. So yeah, I was 25. And so at the very least, every Sunday, it was going to be a 12-hour marathon. But, you're still going to have like a shifty after. You might go try to catch a deal at Buster's on Thursday, whatever it may be. And this is going to sound terrible, but I felt I was like comparing my amount of drinking to the people around me and feeling like I was fine because I was drinking a little less than they were, or I hadn't yet started dabbling in cocaine yet. And so therefore it was okay what I was doing, which is just not a way to make decisions or view other people, as your barometers.
But also it's very, very, very common. So I don't think it sounds terrible. Is it healthy? Is it a good way to make decisions? No. But does it make it terrible? Also, no. It's just like the addicted voice hard at work. It's going to say anything it needs to say to get you to keep drinking or whatever. At that time, was it fun? Were you like, oh, I still have a problem? Like, was it hangovers and blackouts? Like, what was going on for you at that time?
It wasn't too many blackouts. I did feel like it was fun at the time. The hangovers, though, were crippling. It was, especially when, like, the dabbling in cocaine started, then it was like just a nightmare the next day. But the hangovers got pretty tough. Monday was basically like an out of commission day, until I started working at part-time also, and then I had to work Mondays also. So every Monday I'd spend like 40 minutes of my shift hiding in the bathroom.
Goodness. Been there. Not at that restaurant, but been there other places. But
yeah. But yeah, because I guess it was fun. My boss at the time, There's this great guy named Will. He's still my best friend to this day. So I appreciate it for like those times. I've kind of always felt conflicted about the time spent at Buster or at like on Dixon or with these people while drunk, sometimes very drunk, versus like how those memories make me feel now. And it's hard, because it's like in those moments, like when you're in it, you feel like all of these people sitting around me in this bar are important to me, and they're going to be important to me for a long time. And as you come out of drinking or whatever substance, your friends group change. They probably change. Mm-hmm. You're right. Your interactions change. And those people that you thought were important is like that wasn't what was important, right? It was just the fact that you had access to well whiskey.
Yeah, that can be a super hard realization for a lot of people in recovery. You're like, you wake up one day and you're like, wait, these people aren't acting like friends anymore. Like you kind of just see people's true colors. Yeah. Some people stick with you, and then some people keep doing their thing, and you move on and got to meet other people. And it's definitely can be a super struggle coming to terms with that.
Yeah. So then,
so are we at quitting drinking? Like what's that moment like, or is there other stuff that happens before then?
I think the one thing I would say that happened before that is in 2019, I just made a couple of friends I'm still decent friends with today, but we were just all really into drinking, all really into cocaine. And so that was probably what I view as like the tipping point of my issue.
The cocaine.
Yeah, just all of it combined, and just like the how often I was doing it. It was like 3 times a week at the very least. But I had gotten a second DUI. Okay, this is in 20. So I got one in 2014, and I got a second one in 2018. And if you get 3, you're definitely going away for a few months, and you might never drive again. I think. I'm not positive on that, but so there's just a lot of repercussions that come with it. And so I was dealing with that. I was basically not driving for most of that year because my alcohol consumption didn't really stop. Or I was leaving my car at work a lot. So that year is kind of a blur in a lot of ways, but there's still some things I remember about it that was really fun, right? And then COVID happens the following spring of 2020, right? And my final breaking point was COVID started, and the restaurant I was at the time just let us all take like whatever liquor, whatever beer that was there, because they were just like, oh, like, sorry, you're out of a job, but I don't know, like, take this. As often happens in the restaurant industry, right? It's like some form of compensation. And so the shutdown started while I was serving 3 days in county jail because of that second DUI. And so, which is an insane story for another time, but, so I get out, I go to the restaurant, and I take some of the liquor and beer, and I go to my house, and just every day we're drinking pretty heavy by ourselves on Zoom calls. And the night of March 31st, I was on a Zoom call, and I drank like a 5th of Tito's, and I passed out on my back porch, and I stayed there all night. And when I woke up on April 1st, I don't know, I can't even really explain it, but I was just like, I can never do this again. Like, I'm going to die if I stay in this house doing this because, at the time, like, the shutdown feels like it could be however long,
nobody knew.
And so that was my day. I quit. That was April 1st, 2020. And we're going strong. So
hell yeah. So you just woke up that morning on your back porch, probably killer hangover, and you were like, you're just like,
awful.
fuck this,
Yeah.
I'm done.
I said, I'm done. Yeah. I had my buddies that wanted it come pick up the alcohol I had in my house. And the ones I didn't want, I just dumped out. And then I just kept on with the shutdown.
Damn. Did you have withdrawals
Yeah.
from how much you were drinking? What was it like the first few days?
No, I didn't. I don't know. The first few days actually weren't too bad. It was kind of like I was just like riding the wave of like having made this decision or something. And I was, me and my brother had a pretty decent home gym at this time. My brother was my roommate. And I was just kind of like classically swapping out like drinking for now. I'm just going to like lift weights for way too long in a day and fuck up my shoulder for the rest of my life. You know, like, yeah. So, I mean, obviously it was maybe a healthier, thing to do too much, but it wasn't, it wasn't ideal either, but I still would have I would make the same decision, you know, every time.
Sure. Did your brother drink?
Yeah. Very rarely. My brother, this is my middle brother. Very rarely.
So it wasn't like a super temptation, like having it in the house or anything?
No. He had, because he was like heavy, like ale beers. Not really like a, you know, not a drinker's drink, not something you drink too fast. So no, there wasn't too much temptation because even all through this, like through all of my time, I've really just never had this like daily pull. It's just that like, if I get in the habit of it, I'm going to drink to excess if I start drinking at all. So, and just like having like quit for that 6 months before, or quit for this 30 days before, I was like, okay, you're going to at least be able to like knock out some time doing this. I don't think that I knew at the time that I was hoping it was going to be forever. And I was like kind of excited about the decision, but I think in the back of my head, I also like probably left a little bit of room for like, well, you know, just in case, maybe it doesn't work out or something, you know?
So it sounds like the first couple times you quit, it was like you were riding off the fact that it was either going to be like temporary or you had all that spite build up for Miguel. And then this time it was just waking up and being like, I'm fucking good on waking up on the porch. Like, what else motivated you during that time?
I think my body was also just feeling like absolute shit from, I think it started with the 3 days in jail. Well, I mean, obviously it started just with not taking care of myself for too long, but then the 3 days in jail is just an awful sleep arrangement. You don't sleep too much. It was just awful. And then it was immediately like 2 weeks of drinking every day from there during the shutdown. And then I was honestly scared when I woke up on my porch because it's just like nothing bad happened. It was kind of this feeling I had on like my first DUI. It's like something so bad could have happened. But it didn't. So I was again appreciative. And then also, the hangover was just one of the worst I've ever had. And I don't know. Ugh. I couldn't do it.
It's giving me kind of a visceral response. Did you at all have cravings or thoughts of drinking that you had to like reckon with, or was that over when you woke up that morning?
It was over for a while because the draws and like temptations I ended up having going forward were more social. So like the fact that, like when I tell people this story, they're like, wow, I shut down in such a hard time for you to have done that to yourself. And I actually feel the opposite. Because I appreciated that there was going to be no one texting be like, hey, go to this, let's go to this bar. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. So I didn't have any draws towards it until shutdown ended. I was back in grueling restaurant jobs, the free beer was waiting there for me after my shift, those kinds of things.
And at that time with those temptations, were you like, did it feel like you were fighting it off, or did you just not want it? Like, what did you do? How did you feel, and what did you do when the temptations came back?
For the most part, I would just not hang around. For a while, I just didn't hang around at work after I got off. I wouldn't go hang out at the bars and just drink soda water or something, which is something I can do now pretty easy. But the main thing at the time was that it sounds so silly, but it's why we have them. Like, seeing the number on my sobriety app grow was a dopamine hit that I really looked forward to when I needed it, and now I look at it probably once every couple months maybe, but back then it was like every day. I just needed to see the number grow.
So you had a sobriety app. What other kind of stuff were you doing for yourself?
Oh, I almost forgot to mention. So because I got my second DUI, I had to have another counseling thing. And my dad had gotten a DUI in between my two DUIs. And he had gone to this therapist and did like solo one-on-one, and he really liked her. And so he like recommended her to me. And that was really like one of my first experiences with like a solo therapist, and it was incredible for me.
What was incredible about it?
So also this was during COVID. This is around the same time, and she just, I don't know. I'm terrified of going to therapy, but I always love going to therapy now, right? That's how we all feel about therapy. And it was just the first time where I could talk about the stories that I've told you today, and dig deeper into them and kind of try to process what they were. And I don't know. It was just kind of like opened my eyes to this like avenue of health I had never really explored.
And what age are you at this time?
It was 2020, so I was
29. Yeah, I mean, I got into therapy around the same age too, and it was just like, just mind-blowing the things that can happen when we start to like process our trauma and tell people the truth about things. So I totally feel you there. What else? So you had a sober app that you love to look at the days on. Sounds like avoidance was a tactic, and honestly, like, avoiding difficult situations like leaving work when people are going to start drinking and not going to the bar, I think is like, if that's the only thing people are doing, it's bound to fail. But I think it's an important tactic to like add to your toolbox or whatever. Because sometimes we do just need to avoid difficult situations, especially in the beginning. So the sober app, avoidance, definitely. And the therapist. What else were you doing?
I started taking Wellbutrin, which I don't know if you've heard of that. They use it as an antidepressant, but it was originally, they were trying to make like a drug to help people stop smoking cigarettes. So I don't know this lingo very well. It's not an SSRI. It deals more in dopamine, and I don't know the science of it, but it was the first time I didn't. Well, I don't know if I really understood how depressed I was throughout my life, and it was the first time I felt like some levity, I guess, and I ended up getting on Wellbutrin because after this, like what felt like this honeymoon period of when I first stopped drinking and I was working out all the time, it like, I don't know, I'm sure you've heard people describe it this way, but it felt like this veil of protection had lifted off of me, right? Because my defense mechanism of just drinking or smoking weed all the time was gone for that period of time, And that's when I ended up talking to that my therapist counselor, my court mandated therapist, as I call her, about antidepressants and just stuff like that. And she kind of helped me learn.
Cool. Yeah. Was that the first one that you tried and it worked for you right away?
It worked for that time. Yeah, for sure. I still take Wellbutrin today, but I have like a little bit different cocktail of other things. But I think for the goal of getting through shutdown, like starting sobriety, it really worked for me.
That's awesome.
Trying to think.
I'm curious. Did you, I mean, it seems sort of obvious to me, probably the cocaine didn't happen anymore when you're not drinking. And how about the weed? When did all the other drugs stop?
So I stopped cocaine. Basically, I just never really had access to it. I think I did cocaine like once or twice after I stopped drinking alcohol. And that's when I realized I just didn't really enjoy cocaine. It wasn't, I think it was doing them together that I had thought I enjoyed cocaine, yes. If that makes sense. But, and the weed continued on and off. And even today, I'll occasionally eat a gummy. I tried like one AA meeting and it just felt like not for me. And so just as I was just learning about things, just kind of figure out my own path, I hit a point where I felt like I could reintroduce marijuana and give it a go without it like pulling me off track or anything, you know? So I did that. Right now I'm currently in a phase of not smoking because sometimes it just gets me a little too anxious or too lazy or, you know.
Does it derail your life when you're smoking it, or does it just has some negative repercussions and you'd rather not?
It can derail my life if I get in a daily habit, for sure. But for the most part, I'm pretty good about recognizing if like that pattern's starting to happen, and putting a stop to it, you know.
Does it feel like harm reduction to smoke weed instead of drink? Or does it feel like replacing one thing with another?
I don't know. Like I used to love the idea of feeling like alcohol was an enhancement for another activity or weed was an enhancement for another activity. And so when alcohol was off table, it was like weed was my enhancement for all activities, whether it was like playing video games or going to the movies or like working out or whatever, you know. It just felt like it definitely replaced the defense mechanism to a certain extent, right? Because I didn't get too into my feelings when I was, you know, high on 50 milligrams or whatever. So that's why I'll use it every now and then, and not like a high milligram, mainly edibles now. But I don't want to rely on that defense mechanism. And instead, I'd rather just cry to my therapist. Is it the same
therapist, you know? Or have you gotten a different one?
It's a different one. So, well, in Oregon, I had to get one that was licensed in Oregon, but I only saw that my court mandated one during the 8 weeks or 6 weeks, I can't really remember, that I had to do for the court. And at the time, I didn't think about just like keep paying her to see her. I didn't have health insurance at the time. That's probably why I didn't. But Oregon has like a pretty good Medicare program. So I'm lucky to be able to see my therapist Heather once a week.
We love that. Where are you at now with your recovery? So I guess you're around like over 5 years or something. What does your recovery look like now?
What does it look like now? That's a good question. It still looks like, I think about anniversaries. I think about like 6 months, like adding 6 months to my total. Cause I still do like to see the number grow. I don't really go to bars still, but if there's like an event or something, I will. It's not like a total avoidance. I still work in the restaurant industry, so it's still around a lot. The opportunity is still presented to me often. And 5 years in, it's, I don't even really think about the idea of accepting it, you know? So it's like, it feels much more, like instinctual to just not drink. So yeah, I guess that's where I'd say I am.
Heck yeah.
I think if there was one message I could tell anybody And I mainly gathered this from my 1AA experience, is that, and also looking at like the subreddit Stop Drinking and stuff, is that there's, and I've even done it today. There's like so much emphasis put on the number growing, and I do it because it helps me. But if you're trying to not drink and you make it 59 days, and then on the 60th day you drink, that doesn't mean the 59 are meaningless. It doesn't mean they don't count for something. Because if the next day you're able to not drink and you don't want to drink, then you've now not drank for 60 out of 61 days. And I think that's a better way to look at it sometimes. So I think people just need to always get back on the horse if they want to.
Totally, saying fuck it is like the worst danger, I feel.
Yeah.
Were you able to address that core wounding with your therapist? And I guess in my mind, from what you've told me, the core wound was like the abandonment of the divorce. Like, do you feel healed in that sense?
We are still actively working on it, for sure. We've made a lot of progress. I guess there's something else that is something I would say also, is that, because I think part of my honeymoon period when I stopped drinking was that in my mind, not drinking was the fix, right? And as most people I've talked to about this, I'm sure you've experienced this. It's like, that's not the fix. That's what was hiding the things that you really need to work on. And that process is hard, but it's rewarding. It's sad, but the end of it can be happy.
Totally. I've heard it described like the layers of an onion. Yeah. Like drinking is the layer on the outside. And once you remove that, you have to keep peeling back the layers of your healing to get to the center of it. So what do you think people don't understand about addiction?
So I live in the very middle of Portland. And we have a very large unhoused community. And you know, Portland's often thought as like, and it's a very left-leaning city, but it's like, the amount of grace we give people is always shorter than it probably should be. And I just wish people could remember that most of these unhoused, whether it's in Northwest Arkansas or it's in Portland, they probably have an addiction they're dealing with, and they probably don't have the resources to get what they need. Because you say they could get a job to get a place, but it's like they don't have an ID. And then you have to have all these documents that maybe they have or they don't have anymore to get that ID. So I guess I would just want people to understand that we all need a little bit more grace, and we should give it to these people as well.
Yeah, I hate that a lot of times people are like, well, you have to get your addiction under control to like earn the right to have basic human decency or something like that. And it's kind of like, maybe if they were given basic human decency, they could work on getting their addiction under control if they would like to do that, instead of like society like placing these moral needs on people that is just super not helpful. So thanks for bringing that up.
I don't know if you saw Trump's executive order last week, but he's kind of coming. They're going to come after the unhoused the way they've gone after immigrants, and the way they define a vagrant is going to be very broad. And I don't know. I just think people should be aware.
Scary stuff. If you could speak to someone who's like in the darkest days of their addiction, what would you say to them?
I think I would tell them it doesn't have to be forever, that what they're feeling doesn't have to be forever, that any progress is huge progress. I feel like even if someone goes from a daily drinker or like drinking all day daily drinker to like only drinking at night daily drinker, that is progress. And there's a lot of people that are not going to give you credit for that progress. But I and a lot of people who have been in your shoes or haven't and just understand will give you that credit for that progress. So no victory is
totally. That
small.
Makes sense to me too. Yeah, because it's like the same thing we were talking about with forcing unhoused people to deserve something or whatever. It's like you also like, if you're magically one day not just, I magically stopped having an addiction, right? Like if you're a person who's chipping away at it slowly, like those slow gains are still gains and they're recognized and they're awesome. Yeah. And you're going to get to where you want to be at some point, but don't discount the little gains. I love that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm so happy to be able to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing. I love the program. I wish I would have been so lucky for this to have existed when I was starting my process. So I'm just glad that people
Thank
have
you
access
so
to
much.
it now.
Recovery Demystified is produced and edited by me, Early Brunner. Stevie Petet made our logo. Our social media manager is Kaylee Bausch. Logan Bragg wrote our beautiful theme music. We are entirely supported by donations as a 501c3 nonprofit. Your tax-deductible donations can be made to our Venmo or to our PayPal at Recovery Demystified. May you be happy and free, dear listener.